Hello and welcome to the AIM webinar series. Today's session is Mastering RFID in Manufacturing, Unlock Efficiency, Automation, and Accuracy. And the speakers for today's session are Neal Lober with FactorySense RFID and Lisa Moore with HID. First, a little bit about AIM. AIM is the Industry Association for Automatic Identification and Data Capture Technologies. We are an unbiased resource for advocacy of the effective use of these important technologies, creating a vibrant community for networking, which creates and maintains standards and other educational materials. If you are not an AIM member and are in this space, you really need to be. Reach out to us to learn more on our opportunities to network, solve industry issues, and influence the automatic identification and data capture industry. Now, briefly, I will go over the AIM antitrust policy. It is the policy of AIM to conduct its operations in strict compliance with antitrust laws. No AIM activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And some other housekeeping notes. All participants are muted in this webinar, but we do want your participation. Send our panel questions via the Q&A option that you can find at the bottom of the application screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the webinar, and all registrants to the webinar will receive a notification when the recording is available to view on our YouTube channel. So with that, I would like to introduce our speakers for today's session. We are joined today by Neal Lober, who is the founder and CEO of FactorySense RFID, as well as Lisa Moore, the Sales Director of Identification Technologies at HID. Thank you for presenting for us today, and I'll let you take it over from here.
Wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining on what is a stormy Thursday in the Louisiana, Mississippi area. We appreciate you coming and joining. Today, we really want to talk about where the rubber meets the road with RFID in manufacturing. RFID has so many use cases across so many industries, but manufacturing in particular is an area where it's gaining increased prominence as we go. So what we hope to do today between Lisa and myself is walk through some of the highlights where we start from 0 and get to 1, and really have a bit of a conversation about best practices, pitfalls, what we've seen in practice, and hopefully get everyone started on the right track. We'll just start by acknowledging, I think, what everyone already knows, that factories are very unique places. They're not like any other industry that I've seen in my professional career. There are 1,001 things that need to happen in the right timing and in the right sequence, and everything has to be in the right place at the right time. Otherwise, you end up with production outages, or you can end up with products going missing, or not meeting a customer's deadline. I was at a factory not but a few weeks ago, and we were just getting started with an RFID engagement with the team there, and everyone was running around with their hair on fire looking for a little bag of washers, and it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. And I said, well, what's the big deal? Why don't you just go up to Home Depot or Lowe's and go get another bag of washers? And it turns out, of course, they're specially manufactured. There's a 2-month lead time. They couldn't just go get them. And so they were looking at an extended production outage and going late on an order because of an inventory inaccuracy. We've seen other cases where tools or even GFE might be misplaced or go missing. And there are not just the financial costs of replacing the tool or the asset or the whatever the tool might be, but really just missing production deadlines. And so what RFID does in the factory sense is gives you an opportunity to really put you back in control of your inventory, your assets, your operations.
Yeah, Neal, and control is a perfect way to describe that. So, RFID, really what it does is it gives you real-time visibility, into your operations. It allows you to not only gain control, but also, drastically improve asset management, manufacturing processes, because, like your example that you provided, once you know where the things are, then you can anticipate roadblocks, and be able to move more quickly to being in a reactive state to a proactive state. So, that means you can, minimize downtime by, preventing things like stock outages or lost items, and those things that create those line down scenarios. So, by having RFID implemented as well, you're able to use that real time data and analytics, because it's Thursday, right? So that report that you ran on Monday, it's probably not accurate by the time you get to Thursday. So implementing RFID and having that data and analytics gives you a better ability to plan more efficiently, and it provides the ability to give your customers more accurate lead times, and really just overall better forecasting. Simply put, RFID delivers measurable value across your factory.
Yep. And that's really the key too, is it is across the factory. A lot of people that we see, they'll come to RFID as something that they found or something that they've heard about to solve one particular problem. And it's super common to start with one specific thing. I'm at a place today where a major driver is inventory accuracy, making sure that everything that you think you have in stock is actually there, kind of like our friends with the missing washers. So understanding what an inventory application is a great place to start. But what we see is once we start solving some of the small problems, there's a whole range of additional value that RFID can deliver in that manufacturing context. You can look back further than the stock room or the warehouse or the material stores area in your own factory with RFID. We have some customers that are using it to monitor their suppliers' inventory, where they have key parts that are being made specifically for them. Once you leave the warehouse, there's entire processes around kitting and totes. A lot of factories have a kitting process where they'll create a kit, they'll send it to the factory line to be processed into a finished good. But there's not infrequently issues where the line will claim that the warehouse didn't send the kit complete. So if it's a back, a top, and the stuff to go inside, maybe something is missing. And then that causes a lot of reversals and chatter, and it's sort of needless activity. They call it waste in lean manufacturing. So having the ability to X-ray those totes, those kits with RFID before they leave the storeroom after they've been picked is tremendously valuable where you have issues like that. Then we look at, of course, WIP tracking, cycle time monitoring, understanding what the factory looks like and having an eye in the sky so that you can identify those bottlenecks before they cause major problem. And then again, through to finished goods, there's a lot of customer labeling requirements that we have on the back end with our retail customers who are manufacturing retail goods. There are requirements around GS1 labeling for the retail setting. In the military space, they have DLA requirements that RFID tags have to be put on certain goods that are shipped into defense applications. So really, it's from one end to the other. If you're looking at an RFID solution, then start with the problem you have, but consider that it's widely applicable. So what are the key components of an RFID solution? Well, it's easy to sort of get channel locked on the hard pieces, right? The hardware, the tags, the software. But really what we do when we engage with a customer is we try to look at the entire life cycle. Solution design is a big part of it, right? Being able to come out, perform consulting work, understand the customer's process. All factories are similar. Everyone has inventory, everyone has WIP, everyone has finished goods, everyone has assets. There's a lot of commonality, but every factory is also very unique in how they do those things. So being able to really kind of come in and design a solution that matches the technology and lays it over top of the customer's application is absolutely key. Then, of course, the hardware and software are important. Getting it installed is key. Another area where we see projects that have failed that we've had to pick up the pieces on that we're very intentional about is making sure that the customer doesn't have to wear two watches to tell the time. If they have to print a receiving label through SAP and then they have to print a second label from their RFID system, FactorySense or whatever it is, then it means that they're doing double the work. And so integrating it into the customer's environment so that, again, that RFID just sort of overlays with as minimal to zero work as possible is really an end goal, and it should be part of a well-considered project. And then I would highlight the last three pieces are training, maintenance, and support. Once you set these systems up, they are by and large set it and forget it, but you can't completely forget about them because it is radio. They do need occasional tuning. Things will happen, hardware will go end of life, software will need updates. With FactorySense, we do it all as a service, but regardless of the direction the customer goes, it's really essential to make sure that the users are trained, everyone has knowledge and understanding of how to use the system, and that the materials themselves, the software, the hardware, everything is getting sort of continuous love. So nothing is going end of life and ending up essentially requiring reinvestment. Now, when we talk about RFID, there are two key types. There's passive and there's active. And Lisa, you want to walk us through that really quick?
Yeah, sure. Like Neal said, there's two major types, passive and active. So passive is, probably what most people think of like your, traditional idea of RFID. Passive can be, in the form of printable labels, embedded tags, rugged hard tags. There's a really wide range of form factors and sizes. The passive tags do not require a battery, so they're essentially activated by using an RFID reader to transmit their data. They're typically, an economical solution. They range from pennies to dollars, but they can tend to have a little bit of a higher infrastructure cost compared to active tags. So now moving on to active tags, so they actually do have a built-in power source, usually in the form of a battery. The tags rely on BLE, which is Bluetooth Low Energy, to communicate through a network of strategically placed gateways. I think more and more people are kind of investigating and showing an interest in active tag technology. We're starting to, really see a rise and an uptick for those requests. But I want to point out that, active tags are not for every use case. They're more commonly used for tracking, high dollar assets, because they do come at a higher cost than passive tags. They typically do have a little bit of a lower infrastructure cost. I guess in some instances that could be considered a trade-off, but again, you want to make sure that if you're, implementing, passive or active, that, it's the right technology for your use case.
And oftentimes what we see is a mixed use case as well.
Yes.
It is very common for us in our practice to put active tags where you need condition monitoring, temperature monitoring, or for super high value inventory, or if it's on a machine, vibration monitoring, those sorts of things. But we use the lower relative cost passive tags for the bulk applications like warehousing, inventory,
Yeah.
travelers and whips. That's super, super common. So sort of bringing it all together, if you're working in the manufacturing sector and you're putting in an RFID solution, you just have to be mindful that you're putting in a complete solution, right? There's the tags, whether it's active, passive, or both. There's, okay, what is the software that's going to receive all the data and manage it? Again, with our company, it's FactorySense.io, which is a web-based platform that essentially brings it all in and connects all that data to your systems. But bear in mind too, RFID scan rates are oftentimes 300 to 500 reads per second. So it can be a mountain of data if you don't have the right sort of software behind it to pull the signal out from the noise. But again, really just be mindful that all of those sort of 7 pillars, right, those 7 key points that we brought up before should be part of what you do. But let's double click on the tags for a second. Lisa, why don't you walk us through some of the specifics on the tags? Because there are so many different types.
Oh yeah. Like I said, there's definitely not a shortage of tags, especially where HID is concerned. We could probably do a whole nother webinar just on tags. So really, having the right tags is a critical component to your RFID implementation. So, this is where, HID comes in. We're a global leader in RFID tag development and manufacturing. We've spent years evolving our technologies based on our customers' needs. And we understand that there's not a one size fits all. So that's the reason we have such a very large and extensive portfolio. So I'm going to kind of start in the top corner here. So on and off metal hard tags. So these types of tags have, as you know, usually a small footprint for smaller assets, thinking like tool tracking, tracking surgical trays, instruments, things of that nature where you need a tag that is going to be small in nature, but also very durable to be able to withstand certain elements like for instance, an autoclave application. Okay. On the top right are our long range hard tags. So these are more commonly used for rugged type applications, outdoors, factories, just harsh environments. They're typically used for tracking large reusable assets. So, examples would be, they're used for yard management, tracking vehicles, forklifts, shipping containers, things like that. Our XO800 is also a very popular option in the automotive industry. It's used quite often for the the metal rack tracking. And then down below, we have our on and off metal labels. So these are, printable labels. You can either, a lot of the labels you can field print with an on metal RFID printer, or, HID, we do offer what we call Service Bureau, which is encoding and printing. So we'll do that for you. We have, several facilities around the world. So the labels are more commonly used for tracking products through like shipping, receiving, WIP, and really kind of everything in between. We also have temp sensing labels for cold storage monitoring, and just monitoring temperature, throughout the supply chain. So definitely have a large portfolio of labels. Like Neal mentioned earlier, sometimes whenever you're using RFID, you may not want to necessarily have the expense of putting a hard tag on a particular asset, especially if it's something that is going to be kind of moving out quickly, inventory tracking, things like that. But a label in these instances is usually the perfect fit.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have, our rugged specialty tags. So these are tags that were designed and developed for a specific application, or for, very tough conditions. So many of these are used in the oil and gas industry. Our Adept 360 is used to track. That's the one that kind of, I call it the bottle opener. It's, it's the one right in the middle of that group there. So it's used to track large steel cable assemblies as they go, throughout the shipyard. So, we have a lot of these specialty tags that we've designed, but, we can also, we also have the ability to custom design tags for the right application as well. Okay. So moving on to, again, this just is kind of an extension of our portfolio. So we have, a lot of use cases in harsh environments that require something that's been rugged, thoroughly tested, and in some instances even certified. So these tags, they get bumped, they get scraped, they get beaten. They're able to survive years without issue. And in unfavorable conditions like, being used outdoors, salt exposure, high UV, etc. We've kind of invented tags for these types of scenarios. So, and then in some cases, these tags need to maybe meet certain safety regulations. Could be Class 1 DIP 1 or ATEX certification. So we work very closely with regulatory partners to certify those tags for those particular areas, and also, for other certifications that may be, required in other areas of the world like Europe. So once you have identified your tag, which is, again, a very critical component, you also want to take into consideration how you plan to attach the tag. So your use case is going to drive how the tag is attached to the product or the asset. So there are many ways to mount an RFID tag, as you can see here on the screen. I won't go through all of them, but there are several different ways to get the job done. But it's also important to remember your staff, your end user, like who's going to be putting these tags on. What kind of manual labor intensive process is going to be involved in that. If the process is too difficult, your users could, lose motivation or worse, cut corners in trying to attach these tags. And then just, choosing the wrong attachment method in general can lead to a considerable installation time and really kind of stall your project and your process as you're going along. So, one of the best ways to make sure that you're not only choosing the right tag, but also the right attachment method is to do a proof of concept. So it can really help ensure that you have, all of that ironed out before you jump into implementing RFID and start running into these issues.
And I think that's a good segue too. So let's talk about some best practices, tips for a strong start. Certainly a proof of concept is something that we do, I would say, virtually every time that we start engaging with a new customer, or if it's a new site within a customer that hasn't had RFID yet. And that really speaks to finding a quick win. To your point, there are so many tags and so many options and so many ways that RFID can fit into a factory. If we can find a few quick wins, some low-hanging fruit, let's pick a few tags and a few different options, and let's really focus on that. We've seen that be a very, very successful strategy in terms of getting the technology sort of seeded first. Have you seen the same thing or
yeah, oh yeah, no, absolutely. So all the time, it's very easy to start seeing the benefits of RFID very quickly. And even as early on as just having like the discussion that we're having right now, or just having that first discussion with the customer on their use case. They've come to you with a specific problem and you start telling them how RFID can benefit, and then the wheels start spinning and all the light bulbs turn on and everybody's like, wait, we can do this over here and we can do this over here. And it's like, no, wait, crawl,
Yeah,
walk, run, right?
absolutely.
Don't do that.
And
But Neal, one of the other things that I want to point out on this slide here is, something that I've seen. I think you've probably seen it from time to time as well. That can be very frustrating. So I just want to point out here, like, what we mean by appoint a project champion. So it's important to have, your own internal point of contact, somebody that's going to help to manage expectations, someone that is going to be able to help deliver and back your project, and ideally someone that has the ability to navigate challenges like production fluctuation, or even worse, management changes. Because I think, I've seen several times how an entire project has just been stopped dead in its tracks because somebody left. So, I mean, and Neal, I'm sure you see that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that there's a corollary there as well, where I think it's also critical to find a partner that will get you an equal measure of ownership to what you're trying to do internally. There are so many projects where we've come in after they've made a first start, and we start asking some questions. Okay, how did this happen? How did you find yourself in this situation? And they're all, very frazzled because they've spent tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're not up and running in the way that they expected. And oftentimes it boils down to the partner that they picked wasn't the right fit, because especially in manufacturing, you need an end-to-end solution. There was some piece of the puzzle, either consulting or hardware or software or something in the middle there that just didn't get done right. Unfortunately, in our industry, there is not a lot of standardization, right? There are things like, EPC, Gen whatever. There's GS1 that's fairly okay in the retail, but beyond that, there's no real sort of official protocol for how an RFID reader talks to a server, or how that data gets filtered out, or how you handle different use cases. At FactorySense, what we've done is we've really sort of solved that for manufacturing by creating essentially an out-of-the-box solution. And then we supplement that with consulting and maintenance and services. But again, regardless of whether a partner works with us or someone else, it's just critical to have that end-to-end solution. So the flip side of that too is, avoid relationships if you're looking at starting one of these projects where you need 6 or 7 different parties to come in to give you your finished good. It's just an opportunity for finger pointing. The one thing I'd like to point out, I think, on this slide is also making sure that you have the case for your return on investment at the very beginning. I know we do a lot of work with our customers at the outset to quantify it. We've got sort of starter templates to help people work through quantifying the problem. Not everyone has the ability to put an exact dollar amount on how much time do I spend looking for my stuff, or how much employee time is wasted, or how many downtime days that I have because of an asset that went missing. So really spending the time up front to quantify that will help you, because ultimately all of these projects are going to come with a budget. And understanding that I spend X and I get X plus something in return makes management approval of these projects go so much more quickly.
Mhm.
Lisa,
Yeah.
anything you want to speak to on this one?
Yeah, Neal, I mean, I'm probably at some point, you and I, maybe both of us, are going to sound like a broken record, but, I don't underestimate the importance of a POC, or proof of concept. That really gives you the ability to make the small mistakes in the beginning, that can easily be rectified, and corrected, and then that allows you to scale appropriately from there. But even before your POC, I know it's always very tempting for people to, because Neal, FactorySense, one of your key things is that you offer that site survey. You
Right.
need to be able to come out and put eyes on the operation and see what's going on, so that you can work around any of those environmental factors, the equipment configurations, any of those things that could block an RF signal or get in the way. And I think a lot of people are very tempted to kind of skip that site survey, and they're like, I don't really need it, or whatever. But it's really, it really is very valuable in when you're working with an integrator, to have that site survey done, because it can reveal a lot of the gotchas that can stop an RFID project altogether.
Yeah, and you don't want to be, I guess another way to say that would be, you don't want to be a doctor performing surgery on yourself, right? It's worth a little bit of preventative maintenance there. So I think where this ultimately drives, though, is, you start by solving today's problem, right? So whatever that is, that's, from your proof of concept through maybe, phase 1 or 2, you identify, okay, these are the things that we're going to start by solving. But what inevitably happens, I would say, if it's not 100% of the time, then it's 99.999% of the time, is other people at the factory, or people who come in and visit, maybe customers or suppliers that'll come and visit. Everyone will start asking a bunch of questions. Oh, what's this? How is it working? Or, hey, you have this in the warehouse. Why don't we have it in production? Or maybe a production controller, would say, oh, why we need to use this for kits because the short kits are killing us, and we need to have better, handle on that. Or, it just starts to sort of blossom out from there. And that's when you really start to drive, real digital transformation, right? We've gone from something as simple as we know where our tools are, and we've turned that into, now everything in our factory is a connected thing. We have this eye in the sky that's watching and orchestrating and coordinating everything. And you can start to get into the real concepts of, buzzwords like digital twin. Well, it can be more than just a buzzword if you do this right. Predictive analytics, there's all sorts of stuff that we can do with the technology if we do that. Looking at the clock, I think it might be good to jump into some use cases really quick and talk through those. So we've picked a few to talk through. The first one we'll talk about is a location, Northrop Grumman, that we worked on. That's actually, we were pretty fortunate. We won an award this year at RFID Journal, and it's their Space Park location. It's 1.6 million plus square feet of manufacturing, warehousing, space, labs, those sorts of things. And they build satellites there. And what's interesting about the site is it's kind of anything that you would need to build a satellite happens within that campus and some connect areas as well. But it stands for the proposition that to Lisa's earlier point, there is a tag for just about anything. Tags that go through temperature and thermal vacuums, tags that go through autoclaves, small tags, tags that track things as large as nose cones. From the very, very small to the very, very large, and from the very controlled to the very uncontrolled. It's a really good sort of use case to show just the tremendous variety of applicability that RFID has in a manufacturing environment. Another good case to talk through, because people often ask, okay, well, how long does it take to get one of these projects up and running? Is an aerostructures OEM. Now, unfortunately, we can't share their name, but what we can say is that this is a company that makes things that are internal components that go inside of planes. They had gone through a process where they had used an integrator and done one of these multi-party deals where they had one company and one brand for the readers, another brand for software, another brand for antennas, or a few different brands for antennas. It was one of these patchwork solutions, and it just wasn't working, and they were completely frazzled. I think they had spent probably at that point over half a year trying to get it off the ground. They were ready to abandon RFID entirely, and then someone knew someone who had worked with one of our teams, and we were sort of recommended in. What happened from day number one was within 6 weeks, we had the first hardware installed, we had tracking data coming into the system. And we were starting to get those RFID reads and working on relaying those into their ERP system, so that they could finally start getting the value that they wanted out of it. Now, in fairness, we had a little bit of a head start because they had done some IT work to get network ports and so forth set up for the readers. But that's also to say, all of the things that we've been talking about best practices and how to get started and just taking a small bite, they had tried, I think, to boil the ocean too. So just simplifying it down, narrowing the scope, coming in with a product that was really built for manufacturing allowed us to do in a month and a half what couldn't be done in half a year or more. And again, at a fraction of the cost. So that process generally is the same in, I would say, most every factory that we walk into. We always start with a site assessment. Again, you don't want to be your own doctor. We've seen several times where a customer will come to us and they think they understand the technology, and some fairly do, others less so. But maybe we'll get an RFP right out of the bat. We always tell them until we put a foot on site, we can't sort of quote a project because there are so many environmental factors and other sorts of considerations in these RFID projects that until we really sort of put feet on the ground and do a site assessment, it makes it really hard. Now, the output of that is what we call a site survey that lays out all of our findings. Equally as important to what RFID can do for you is what it can't do. And we want to be really, really clear up front about what the limitations of the technology are. It is not uncommon for people to think, oh, RFID, I should be able to get XYZ coordinates in space and narrow everything down to sort of sub-millimeter location-based data. And when they find out they can do it, but it'll cost $20 million, they lose interest really quick. So what we really try to do is focus on, okay, what is the location-based data that drives value? Do you need to know when things move along the line in your production process, assets, whatever? But the site assessment does that. We write up a site survey, and there's always a proof of concept. Again, take that first bite, spend a little before you spend a lot. And let the technology seed. And once you start seeing return on investment and other people from the plant can come in and sort of put their hands on it and touch it and feel it and see what it looks like, play with the software, play with the hardware, then from that point, it's really just a matter of scaling up. And that's where that proof of concept and the site assessment and the site survey are just the foundations that will be used to sort of build things up. So I'm eager to get to the questions. Looks like we've got a quick about us slide. So yeah, FactorySense, we work almost exclusively with manufacturers. In our little niche in the industry is that we supply RFID essentially as a turnkey service. So everything from the consulting, the hardware, the software, ongoing maintenance, training, all of those key things, you know, our focus is almost exclusively on manufacturing. So we try to bring those best practices on day one. We do work with a few partners, but really our niche is manufacturing. And then we connect all of that data into our customers' systems, whether it's, there's hundreds of them, SAP, Oracle, CostPoint, there's sort of no end to what we can connect the data to. But yeah, that's FactorySense. Lisa, HID?
Yeah. You know, HID, so we are the tag manufacturer. So we are, you know, we have our US headquarters based in Austin, Texas. We are actually a part of ASSA ABLOY, which is a global leader in access control solutions. So, you know, combined with ASSA ABLOY, we're operating in 70 plus countries around the globe. I think, you know, HID is well known for our access control systems, but our particular division, or the division that I'm a part of, is IDT, identification technologies. So we are the ones that we specialize in those industrial RFID components and tags, like what you've seen earlier in the slide. So we're happy to help. We're very fortunate and thankful that we're able to partner, with FactorySense, and we hope to be your go-to when you think RFID tags.
Wonderful. Okay, let's do some Q&A. Bethany, are you moderator?
Yep, I will get started with the Q&A here. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, you can submit questions for the panelists through the Q&A application at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to start off with the first question here. How can we connect the RFID data into our ERP systems?
Okay, I can grab that one. That's a pretty good one. So yeah, ultimately, just getting the raw data out of the field is not going to drive a ton of value. It really becomes super valuable when you do connect it. So what is super common for us is, as part of that survey process, we'll identify all of the different other pieces of your tech stack that we can connect the data into. So it might be an integration with a tool like Solumina that does manufacturing execution, or it might be integrating with Oracle or SAP. Usually we can connect through an API, and that tends to go one of two ways. Either your system can pull the data out of FactorySense with a pull-based system, or conversely, we can push the data into your system with a push-based connection. There's lots of ways that we've done that before. But it's usually either a push or a pull through some sort of an API connection.
All right, and we'll go into the next question. What software do we need to support an RFID tracking project?
I guess I'll grab that one too, since that's more software
That's a good
related.
question too, Neal.
Yeah. So I mean, typically what we'll walk into with customers that start to dabble with RFID is they may use something like a bartender, or a database of some sort that they've come when they've tried to do these things internally. And that's not super uncommon for a lot of integrator solutions as well. What we've done with FactorySense is we've tried to create something that is completely turnkey. Again, there should be, you as a manufacturer should be able to focus on manufacturing, and we can supply the rest of it. And then our job is then, kind of like the last question, to connect that RFID data into your systems to start driving some competitive advantage there. So the short answer is hopefully none, beyond just the FactorySense platform.
All right, and how large or complex should my POC project be? Do you have guidelines to offer?
Lisa?
Well, there are several different factors that go into a POC. So, and I think this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier in the presentation. Like, start small. Start with, the, like what Neal said, to take the win, find the low hanging fruit. Start with that smaller project in mind. You can always scale it from there, but in order for, I think, for a POC to be most successful is, you don't want to throw everything at it. You want to focus on a particular pain point that you can resolve and show that resolution and that ROI. And then, you come back later and start adding more. So Neal, I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just start small. Take a quick win and
What does it say? Don't boil the ocean.
don't boil the ocean. Just start with one use case and establish some success and build on there.
Exactly.
Right. And our next question here is how soon should IT be pulled into the project, and what are some of the points they need to be aware of?
From my perspective, the answer is yesterday. It's never too soon to involve IT. I mean, as you guys can tell, I have lost some of my hair, and I can't say that some of that is not due to networking issues. I will say in our practice, I mean, the actual RFID part, the consulting, the installation, the hardware, the tags, all of that tends to be a slam dunk. When we run into issues, it tends to be more sort of networking or infosec related issues because at least, from our perspective, delivering something as a service, whether it's hosted on premises or whether we host it in the cloud, it always takes some amount of networking changes. Whether that's just turning ports on or putting things onto an isolated VLAN or any of the dozens of things that need to happen. Because it is networked equipment and you're generating data, it does need that networking service. So the sooner you involve IT, the better.
Agreed.
And when it comes to hardware, how do I know if what we have chosen is too little or too much?
Mm.
Well, that's where your trusted system integrator comes into the equation. So it's really important to get to consult with the industry leaders, the integration experts. They've done this many times, and they know where the hangups are. They know the type of equipment that's required. They can really highlight where more time and care is needed in a particular area, but they can also, they will take all of the components, they're looking at your whole total solution, not just, this little piece here or this little piece there. So, by looking at everything as a whole, they're also keeping in mind that you are looking for, you're looking for that ROI in the end. So, the goal is to provide you with the right amount of hardware and the right amount of tags to accomplish your goal and be able to prove your ROI.
Yeah, I think a short version of that would, if you want a rule of thumb during a proof of concept, no more than 3 to 5 tags. If you have to sort of come and unfurl like a big roll with so many different options, then it's going to confuse the heck out of the people who are
Yeah, that's
starting
true. That's true. Like,
to
I mean,
do a tag.
obviously, if you can
Yeah,
standardize on a tag for a particular application, that's fantastic. But there are those instances where, again, that one size does not fit all.
yeah,
But trying to, come at it with, the whole HID portfolio is probably not going to do you any favors.
yeah. On day one, the rule is it's the old KISS rule, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Just less to go wrong. Let the technology sort of seed at the location. That's the goal.
All right. And so the next question we have here is somebody said, I saw there are a lot of UHF and industrial applications. Are there any use cases for LFRFID, and how many percent LF are using right now?
That's a good one. Lisa, you want to, that's more hardware related. You want to grab that one?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, there are absolutely a lot of use cases for LF technology, and we do have quite a wide array of tags that are available in not just UHF, but also in LF and HF. So I think today's presentation, or what we've been discussing in manufacturing, you tend to lean more towards UHF tags, because a lot of these applications require a longer read range, whereas a low frequency tag is going to be a much closer read range. You're going to be really close. I think your max is going to be about 2 feet. So if you want to do anything over 2 feet, then you really kind of want to start migrating towards a UHF. But we do absolutely support LF technology. We have lots of tags, be it labels, glass tags, kind of a plethora of options. So that is something that we can help you with. And if you want to reach out to me after the webinar and talk to me a little bit more about your particular use case, be happy to see if I can help you out.
All right, and then we have our last question here. Do I need application-specific software for my readers if I already have a middleware software package already?
I need application-specific software for the readers. So you shouldn't. I guess that's going to be more of an environmental question. So depending on the readers that you have, they're going to output data in a different way. So if what you have is already configured to work and it's the right sort of mix of technology, then the reader should send data to your middleware platform that should then do whatever it does, and then optimally send that data out to whatever reporting or ERP system that you have. So you shouldn't need any additional layers in the stack. Generally with these things, again, to the earlier point, there's just a tremendous lack of standards. So the less stuff you have, the less stuff can go wrong. If kind of like to Lisa's earlier point, if you want some more specifics, then you're certainly welcome to reach out. Our contact information for Lisa and I are here. I guess, Bethany, if there's anything else to wrap up.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you guys for joining us today. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. As Neal mentioned, the contact is on the screen for FactorySense HID and AIM. But yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.